Got it. With a question mark so that the chat monitor can easily see your question. Those are the questions that will be asked to the speaker during the Q&A session. The chat monitor will answer any questions they could do so. Just so you know, we are on a very tight timeline. So let's get started. It is my pleasure to introduce Toastmaster Carl Culmer. Carl is a 2019 recipient of the Bahamas 40 Under 40 Award. He has been actively engaged in financial services regulation for over 15 years. His tenure at two of the Bahamas financial services regulations has afforded him the opportunity to have supervisory oversight for several of the jurisdiction's multinational and local banks, trust companies, and insurers. His responsibilities have included policy advisory, risk management, compliance, corporate strategy, and communication. He is currently pursuing postgraduate studies in financial services law at the University of London. Impressive. Since 2005, Carl has been an active member of the Toastmasters International Program. He served as the club executive for the New Providence branch of Toastmaster Club 3596. Throughout the years, he has effectively represented the club, area, and division as an evaluation, table topics, and international speech contestant. In 2015, he walked away as the champion evaluator for the District 47 evaluation competition. Motivated by the personal growth he received through Toastmasters program, Carl has committed himself to pay it forward by helping individuals expand their leadership and communication capacity and to reach beyond their potential. Please put those virtual emojis together to welcome our speaker, Carl Culmer Jr.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the organizers, executive members of Toastmasters International, District 47 clubs, and members for inviting me to speak to you this afternoon. It is truly my pleasure to be here in this 3D 4K simulation of the metaverse to share with you my thoughts on reimagining a better you and exploring new horizons. Our brief discussion will cover, sorry, and I should share my screen. That's important, isn't it? A brief discussion will cover only a few thoughts that I have as it relates to exploring new horizons. Can everyone see my screen? Good.
Yes, we can see it.
So as we discuss certain things, we're going to explore the great beyond. What does that mean? We'll find out. And then we're going to know and begin to understand what are those exploring essentials that we need in order to find ourselves and reimagine ourselves in a new place, in a new horizon. And then we're going to have a total recall where we will have an opportunity to have some light discussion, and then we'll know what the next stage of our development will be. How many of us love the middle ground of comfort where we think we found the sweetest spot to sit and enjoy the beauty of the shore and the sea horizon? But that sweet spot at times may distract us from realizing and recognizing the fact that we are shore locked like Tom Hanks in the movie Castaway. And our only friend is Wilson the volleyball. And in order to taste and feel and touch freedom again, we have to muster the strength to swim to the neighboring inhabited island. But before we swim, let us begin with a light icebreaker. Now, I don't know how many of you are new to Kahoot, but I'm going to ask that you please go to kahoot.it, and the first 10 individuals joining will be able to participate within the game. All right, so let me just stop sharing here. And we're going to share my screen. Can everyone see that? So on Kahoot, what you're going to do, you're going to put in that ID number after you log into kahoot.it. I see Chanel has joined already. Give it a few more minutes. So at least we have about 7 or 8 individuals. If we get 50% of the room inside it, that'll be good. Okay, looks like we have about 4 people in the room. That's fine. So we'll begin. 5. We'll begin. So the key to Kahoot is to ensure that you answer correctly, but also answer swiftly. Yep, it was Neil Armstrong. It looks like Elizabeth G is in the lead. Let's see if Elizabeth still maintains the lead. She still does, yes. Oh, takes a little bit longer than that. CM Dorset. I think that's supposed to say Dorset, right? Yeah, I know this one. I threw this one in here just to be a little bit hard because I know no one probably get that one. And hint, it's not keeping up with the Kardashians. Ah, Carl the Crusader was not a famous one. I'm just still here. This is for all my Floridians. Good. Catherine has taken the lead. Good. We have one more after this. Pay attention to the names. Lewis and Clark, not Superman and Lois Lane. This is your double point. So you get this one right, someone can take the lead. was China. Let's see who won. Congratulations, Maria, in third place. Chanel's in second place. Is it Elizabeth? Is it Catherine? Congratulations, Catherine. Thank you for playing Kahoot. So let me share my screen for my presentation again. Can everyone see now? Good.
We see Kahoot,
You see Kahoot?
but I believe
Yeah, your PowerPoint. We see the
it was
PowerPoint.
your PowerPoint, yes.
Okay. You see my PowerPoint now?
Yes, we do.
Good. All right. So thank you so much for participating in our little icebreaker. Now that you have your palates moistened with a taste of adventure and exploration, I wish for you to come along with me in my role as Carl the Crusader, that non-famous explorer in the game Kahoot. And within our icebreaker, we were humbly reminded that, while there's nothing new under the sun, there remains pockets of unfounded discovery that reinvigorates the imagination to see, hear, and do things differently. And while these lands, areas, and adventures and seas provide us with great thrill, nothing beats the discovery of unearthing something hidden within. Putting aside all of our self-imposed limitations that places us in a prime position to explore new horizons, we must now look at the things that gets us over the hump to our reimagined self. Now, while we discuss so many great explorers and adventurers in our icebreaker, I can't help but be reminded of one famous explorer. Many of the 70s, 80s, and 90s babies may be aware of this individual. No, this individual did not have the many exploratory tools, machinery, or vessels that those other explorers had to achieve his adventure, but he was driven by something bigger than his stature and his occupation. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, I speak of one of the meta world's greatest explorers and one of New York City's greatest plumbers, Mario the Plumber from Super Mario Brothers. Yes, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I know many of you recall spending countless hours and many attempts trying to maneuver and manipulate the elements of this game to safely achieve the ultimate goal of rescuing who? Princess Peach, if you remember that. Yes, before Fortnite and Halo went on missions, there was Mario the Explorer, the plumber who was the explorer. His mission was clear. His path, however, from sewer to sky worlds was filled with exploring new horizons. Like Mario, each of us are faced with similar conditions and criteria placed on each world stage of the game. We enter the world with no clear compass other than moving straight forward, straight ahead, not knowing how many times, what obstacle or reward lies beyond the edge of that screen. We are given a limited number of lives or days to achieve a host of goals. For us, each day is a renewed life to learn from yesterday's failures and reimagine today's and tomorrow's success. We have an incentive-based system that keeps us seeking rewards that ultimately help us to traverse the many stages of life. And lastly, in exploring new horizons, our goal is to help someone along and at the end of our journey. And all of that is captured in this one screenshot where we show our lives, the time we have, and what stage of the world we're in, and the reward system. So I'm asking you to come along with me on figuring out the simple essentials that we need to explore new horizons. Do we need some directional tool, a map and a compass to guide us along our journey? Yes. Will we need food, medical supplies, survival supplies to help sustain us during that journey? Yes. Will we need an in-depth knowledge and understanding of the risks that surrounds us in the many stages of our life? Yes, yes, and yes. But for this journey of reimagining our better selves and exploring the beauty of the horizon at the edge of the sunlight, these are the essentials that we need. No, it's not an exhaustive list, but it provides the appropriate set of core qualities that serves as the catalyst for achieving success. Passion, the element that persists in our veins because it recognizes the journey beyond the physical and drives our mental fortitude to press on. Communication, the first thing we do after breathing our first breath of life out of the womb is to exclaim that we are here. We are communicating to everyone in that birthing room. And lastly, teamwork, the skill set that has permitted humanity to create, build, explore, using means beyond our individual capacity and tapping into the strength of the collective. So we're gonna have a poll, and I'd like to see some answers coming in the chat. What fuels your passion? What fuels your passion? Is it fulfilling your objectives? The thrill of the journey? The reward, the incentive of opportunity, advancement, and undoubtedly the sight of more zeros in your bank account? Or is it a dream, a desire to fulfill something that you've had birthed in you from a child? Please upload your response in the chat. And I'm sure everyone will think it's the incentives, right? No, we're not. We're bigger than that. Let's see what's coming from the chat. Fulfilling my objective, dreams or desires, all of the above. I like that, Diana. All of the above, fulfilling my objectives. Well, the reality is there is no individual right answer to this question. The fuel to your passion is situational. For our plumber Mario, some stages within the game requires him to collect as many coins as possible so that he can increase the number of lives he possesses in order to defeat his greatest enemy, King Cooper. Sometimes he fulfills his desire to fly and get past the many obstacles of the world once he possesses, remember, that little magical feather. For him, though, at the end of the journey, is it all worth it? Who knows? The most appropriate response to this is actually understanding which one of these options is specific to me at any one time to fuel my passion. As a young man working in financial services, increasing the zeros to your salary was paramount. That's how you got to see and tell and show that you were successful. But now in my life and where I'm at, should I leave my job that is now helping me fulfill a dream for the desire of more money? Or if I'm currently in a situation where I have a difficult challenge with people in the workplace, should that be the singular factor that makes me want to pack my Georgie bundle and hop on the nearest Nina, Pinto, or Santa Maria? Fellow Toastmasters and guests, sometimes the correct answer will only reveal itself once we explore the horizon. However, we must be prepared to ask ourselves the hard question. What is fueling our passion? And we have to be able to respond honestly to feel a sense of completion or correctness in making that decision. So, passion is fulfilled when courage and faith coexist. Courage to not only do the things differently, but do it better. Faith in your individual ability and abilities of those you lead and partner with. We often have a feigned imagination of the strength of our faith, but lack the actual strength to activate the courage to move forward. We get caught up in the dazzling lights of being different from others, but not necessarily being a better version of ourselves. That mindset distorts our passion. So we must not confuse our passion with ambition. Ambition seeks the objective, the end, the reward. Passion is driven from the source. Therefore, it's imperative that we distinguish the difference between them so that we are careful to not allow our ambition timeline to adversely affect our passion journey. Your ambition timeline can be affected by many external factors and possibly extend the journey beyond the time frame you assign and that you imagine. Knowing what drives us is a safe zone to return to, so that we are consistently reminded on why we decided to explore this particular horizon or this stage of our journey. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, the first leg of our journey must be understanding the fuel source of passion, because that is what will keep us forging ahead. Now, every Toastmaster should be fully aware of this communication cycle, as it forms one of the sacred pillars of this program. What separates the Toastmasters program from normal communication is the element of feedback in a mutually supportive environment. The honesty and effectiveness of the feedback that we receive in any meeting can either be the spark that ignites the engine of your motored vessel to forge ahead, or it can be the spark to the wick of a piece of dynamite that derails your desire to explore a venture further. And let's be honest, the thoughts, words, and actions we say over ourselves can have a more damaging effect on our capacity to discover and unearth those hidden gems, like we spoke to earlier. So, in understanding this communication cycle, feedback is key, because if we're open to feedback, we're able to progress further. Our communication to others and ourselves must share this common set of criteria. Streamlines expectations. Having good communication or a lack of understanding on what it takes to enter a venture or begin a journey sometimes leaves us tired before we even begin, because we did not properly communicate our ideas or our expectations to meet our objectives. Streamlining your expectations builds patience and clarity. And when something adverse occurs, we're able to react appropriately. Communication should be clear and unambiguous. Most, if not all of us, are familiar with the term SMART goals. Our goals should be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Any ambiguity to any of these criteria can communicate an unintended message to others. So if you do not appropriately consider what is an attainable goal during any part of your journey, you risk communicating the message that you do not respect the input and time of others. So communication must be clear and unambiguous. Feedback anchors and redirects the communication process. This is a self-evident statement in the Toastmasters program. Effective evaluations aid members to become better speakers and better leaders. This in turn improves their individual capacity and strengthens the credibility of the organization. And communication should be appropriately frequent. You know, any skills tradesman will tell you, measure twice, cut once. So an effective communicator should check and recheck that the instruction given or shared is understood by all. Likewise, when you're communicating with yourself, because you sometimes have some conversations in the car or in the mirror, you have to speak affirmations over yourself. You should regularly check whether you have all the tools that are necessary to fulfill an objective. You have to speak to yourself in an appropriately frequent manner. And yes, you're not crazy if you respond. But one of the things that happens once we communicate is we begin to foster relationships. And this African proverb says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Mario and Luigi. When the game came out, it was only Mario. And then they introduced the character, his brother and partner, Luigi. Some years back, I was invited to my high school, St. Augustine's College for all the Bahamians online, to give a presentation to my teachers and administrative staff. Imagine me giving a presentation to the very people who taught me, who can either be credited or blamed for the individual you see before you. In my research, I came across this gentleman, Michael, the facilitator, who said that these are the key things about teamwork. Teamwork, as individuals, we should seek participation, not just input. We need to seek out people who are going to be actively engaged in our process, and not just people to make up the numbers and provide sideline input. We should ask and empower, don't command and control. On those journeys we learned about earlier in our Kahoot game with all of the explorers, I am positive that there was a hierarchy of command. However, the success of those explorations, despite their militaristic makeup, gave some room of empowerment for shipmates to do what they do best. So if you're down on the lower deck, the captain will not be concerned with that because he is empowering you to do what you have to do to make sure that our journey is safe. So ask and empower, don't command and control. Connect first, correct second. I have a very good friend who just left our place of employment and she took up employment in January. And she's been there now for 4 months. And she's a mid-level senior at the place of employment. And in her new job, they brought in someone who's senior to her about 2 months later. And 2 weeks into the new individual's employment, she called her in the office and said, hey, let's find out what is wrong in the process so that we can get together and correct it. Now, my friend was taken aback because she was there for 3 months and she is still trying to connect with all of the information that the job has to offer. However, this individual wanted to correct first rather than connect with the information. And so we must learn to connect with information, connect with people, and correct second. Where there's people, where there's organization, guess what happens? Conflict occurs. Oftentimes, the cause of team dysfunction boils down to communication. However, leaving any conflict unresolved does not address the dysfunction or pinpoint where the communication breakdown occurred. When exploring new horizons, we must be prepared to take the time to engage conflict that arises in teams, because an unresolved conflict can have an adverse multiplying effect on team success. And so we must be prepared to engage conflict and address the dysfunction, not point blame at individuals, but let's address where the dysfunction occurred. And lastly, we should use process to guide and not stifle. Processes and procedures, if you didn't know, like maps and compasses, may guide us to the general direction of our process or destination. But we must be willing to allow room for people to be involved and share in the success of fulfilling our objectives. So yes, when you go to that bank teller or you go to a government office and they say that they can't do that, you let them know. Your process is to guide, not stifle the process, okay? So in understanding this, I understand that teamwork divides the task and multiplies the success. Now, all of the other Mario graphics were clear, but seeing this pixelated version of the Mario game demonstrates the success and how the game has advanced and evolved. I always enjoyed when some of my cousins came over and played the game with me, because that meant we both had an opportunity to play Controller 1 and Controller 2. We can use Luigi. Everyone, when there was only one controller, we fought over Mario. But when you had a second controller, you had the opportunity to use Luigi. And while Mario was the name of the game, when Luigi was activated, we learned quickly that he had the capacity to oftentimes obtain the magical feather quicker than Mario. And so he was able to fly and visit the sky world first, and he was able to show us new worlds while he was in the sky world. When it was time to meet each stage's villain, the chemistry and teamwork of Mario and Luigi made destroying King Koopa that much easier. During these joint player games, there would be times where we have to, think tactically and consider how can we achieve our goals. Or one of us will have to sacrifice one of our lives for the good of the team. But we see it here that once you divide the task, success can be multiplied. It's from experiences such as this that I came up with 5 additional points to Michael to facilitate. What we have to do, recognize the leader in you. Once you have passion and you create an opportunity for open communication and you have a team, everyone has an opportunity to be a leader. Now, there are individuals called global leaders where 8 out of 10 things they can be really great at. But 2 out of 10 things they're good at. And some individuals are great at one thing. And so as a good leader, you must recognize when you can relinquish a bit of control, a little bit of your leadership control, and you can allow that person who's great in that area to excel the team forward. And so you have to recognize those moments where you are and you can be a leader. Teamwork often requires managing a process of change, and we know this all too well. In the Toastmasters program, we go through a change every June and July. And between those points where we have to pick a new executive, select or vote for a new executive. And so we have to manage a process of change. I said this earlier, and I mean this, don't just do things differently, do things better. And why we must consider doing better rather than differently, because differently gets us caught up in an area of only seeing the comparison and contrast. But doing things better actually sees a meaningful measurement of growth for each and every individual on that team. Leaders develop collaborative relationships and they inspire to join them on a journey. And they inspire you to join them on a journey. I can't tell you how Moses did it, but he was absent from Egypt for about 40 years. He came back, the biblical character Moses is who I'm talking about. He came back after 40 years to the Israelites and said, hey, I was sent by a supreme being to come and lead you out of the land of Egypt. Now, we see and hear about so many supernatural and miraculous things, but Moses had to employ these exploring essentials. He had to have a passion for his people in order to be moved. And that was the source of what fueled him to go and see them. He had to communicate with the elders of the tribe to see exactly, hey, how are we going to go and where are we going to go? And guess what? He had to form a team in order to make sure that he's able to facilitate all of these hundreds of thousands of people from slavery into freedom. And so we can see all the miracles, but it's these practical things that had to occur in order for us to know about the story of Moses. And finally, where do you put your E? You know, the saying goes that there's no I in team, but there is a me in team. But in understanding that ME, we must ask ourselves, where do I put my energy, effort, and enthusiasm? Is it for the greater good of the team success, or is it for my selfish desire to be the only named explorer? We know no one else other than Christopher Columbus. I'm sure Carl the Crusader was on that boat too. Deciding where to put any of our E and assessing the ME will dictate how long you take to complete your journey. In the early 90s, Arnold Schwarzenegger starred in a movie, Total Recall, where he was a 90s construction worker with an active imagination to visit the planet Mars. The storyline flips back and forth on this battle with gaining a grip on reality directly in the front of him. Ultimately, in order to return to his reality, he had to rely on his ability to recall people, places, and unique identifiers. Today, while we understand that exploring any unfounded territory will require some practical, realistic tools, collectively, we learn that there are some intangibles that we must keep in the back and forefront of our minds to reimagine our success. So we must know what drives us. The key to understanding, like any good communicator, is to recheck, uncheck, uncheck again. Know what drives you. What is fueling your passion? You must be able to communicate your thoughts, words, and actions because they are paramount to your success. You must be clear and unambiguous. You must be able to receive feedback, and you have to be able to start the process from that feedback on a path to get better, not just to do things differently. You have to recognize the stakeholders in your journey, the team members that make you successful and that have contributed to your success. Stakeholders help your journey become worth it. They make the exploration of your new horizon all the better because now you get a shared success in that journey. And lastly, you have to be prepared to ask yourself the hard questions. Now, this is the point in most presentations where you as attendees ask questions or introduce points for discussion. But I want to leave you with a series of questions that will assist you in truly reimagining the journey that you are preparing yourself to explore. So these are 5 questions that you should ask yourself. What is fueling my passion right now in this moment? What is fueling my passion right now in this moment? 2, am I communicating the best attitude and mindset? Am I communicating the best attitude and mindset? And so attitude can be external, but mindset is internal. Am I capturing all of the things that are going to make me successful in my journey? 3, am I communicating to tell a message only, or am I genuinely interested in receiving the feedback that will answer my decisions, that will anchor my decisions? Are you just going to tell, or are you going to listen? It's the reason why we have one mouth and 2 ears. 4th, have I truly taken into account all the stakeholders that continue to help me on my journey? And sometimes we think about the stakeholders as these big, impactful people, and rightly so, our parents, grandparents. But sometimes it's those small individuals that you may have 1 or 2 interactions with that gave you a nugget. And so you walk away with that information. Are you appreciating that information fully? And lastly, what are my personal indicators I will use to measure my success? The world says I have to lose 10 pounds in a month in order to fit into this dress for this wedding. What are the measurements that I'm going to use? I just need to lose 3 pounds in 1.5 weeks. That's the measurement that I'm going to use for myself. Because sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves by those indicators. We forget to understand the uniqueness that we are, who we are. And so when you establish your journey, whether it's going to a new job, whether it's losing weight for that wedding coming up in June, whether it's that summer body, whatever you want to do, understand the measurements that help make you successful, not what the world says. And so what are my personal indicators that I will use to measure my success? And so those are my questions that I ask of you. I now yield the floor for any other questions that can happen at this time.
Yes, thank you, Carl. Thank you for that. We do have questions. Here's one from Catherine. She's, can you comment on how often goals, short or long term, should be reassessed? So she's asking.
And I don't want to sound like the PC guy. I think it's situational. I think once you have, when you look at your goals, you have to already set those same SMART goals that we talked about: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And part of that, you establish timelines along a particular goal. So if you have a particular goal that needs to be done in 6 months, then you should check that as regular as necessary, because there's going to be areas that require more attention than others, because you can check off a particular area, and then there's some parts of your plan where you'll have to go back more frequently. So I think you have to take a weighted approach. And I don't mean to sound like the finance guy, but we have this approach called a risk-based approach. And what that risk-based approach means is you are going to dedicate your most serious resources to the areas that require high risk. And so if you take that mindset, if you assign a particular level of importance to an entire plan, say, you know what, this area of my plan is going to take 50% of my time, then you should dedicate more time to that. If this area is going to take 10% of my time, then you can act accordingly in terms of how much time you're going to put into a particular element. So I would say as frequent as the risk demands, or as frequent as the journey demands.
We have another question here from Sonia. Oh, wait a minute, that went so fast. Personally, what do you use to measure your success, sir? What are some of your challenges you have encountered thus far in reaching your dreams or goals? That's from Sonia White Woodside.
Yeah, so I'll take the second question first. I think one of the things that, for me personally, is we allow the outside voices to interfere with what the inside voice is saying. And so you always have to tap into that passion. Remember what I said earlier, passion is driven from the source, ambition is driven towards the end goal and the objective. And sometimes I place that comment in there because I too, at 25, 26, was mixing up and blurring what an ambition timeline was and what the passion journey was. And so I didn't get an opportunity to truly appreciate those things that sometimes knock you off your course and you get to learn from. And so for me right now, I think avoiding some of the voices that, and these sometimes people have nothing but noble intent in trying to give you some advice, but sometimes you have to go deep within to the source and be funded by that passion that drives you for a journey. So that's one of the things that helps me.
Wow. You've given us so much food for thought. Another question here from Chanel Pinder. How do you respond when people call you selfish when going after your goals?
Oh, I will be honest, Chanel. I know one of the things I used to do, I would shut down in the corner. I would shut down because I'm allowing people to dictate what I'm going to do. But now when I speak to people like Toastmaster Rodney Bain, he's one of those gentlemen who's going to stand in your corner and say, Carl, you have to do you the best way you know how to do you. And so when people call me selfish or for any reason, my goal is not to, I will never, ever try to dim the light of someone so that I may shine. And that's important. I think if you do that, you're then setting up conflict bubbles in your team, and you're not going to achieve. What you want to do is remember that you are good at these individual things and others are good too. And so for the good of your journey, you do you best. I think that's important.
Wow, doing you do best. That's amazing. Another question here from Rodney Bain. Speak to the importance of pivoting in your journey when you realize it is not working. That's a really great question.
Yes, I know I would have expected a hard question from Rodney. I think, sometimes we fall in love with the don't quit, but pivoting sometimes is not quitting. And I think we have to understand that just because you chose not to pursue all the way to the end this particular venture at this particular time is not a result of quitting. I think what you have to understand is that this time may not be the best time to go for this particular element of your journey. And so when you're speaking to pivoting, I think what each and every one of us have to understand is that there's passion that drives us, and understanding that passion, we have to still set some goals and some timelines that allow us to say, hey, this is not going the way this is going, that I imagine that it's supposed to go. And so therefore, what we need to do is come back to it, revisit it, see all of the other things that you've learned in your journey, take those internally and see how you can, I'll use Rodney word again, pivot to coming back at that at a later time.
Wow. I want to go back to the question from Sonia, actually asking, what do you use to measure your success?
So, success is a very broad term, and I think you have to apply it to what you want to do. So for me, if I narrow it down in terms of my schooling that I'm currently in right now, if I'm able to achieve 4 or 5 hours worth of reading in a particular day, I was successful that day. If I'm able to participate in a program and I'm progressing through the program by being a part of the executive, being an active member, that's a measurement of success. Too often we look at the grand picture of success and don't take into account the incremental elements that help measure success in the long run. And so we have to look at success as a gradual step, not an end goal. Success is a journey.
Absolutely. I love that. Ernesto Williams says his grade 11th class from Noble Preparatory Academy in NASA is present on this call. I love it that they're listening. Is there any advice that you have regarding your session topic as they matriculate to their last grade year? That's awesome.
Sorry, can you say that again, the last part of that?
Any advice to them regarding your session topic as they matriculate to their last grade year?
Grade 12 for me, I often share this story in that grade 12 for me was the last year that I was able to make the honor roll. 7 through 11, I never made the honor roll. I made the honor roll in grade 12. And for Bahamians, and I'm sure Floridians too, it's a big deal to be on the honor roll. It's a demonstration of, hey, I have something in my mind. I'm a smart person. And I didn't do it 7 through 11 because I was, a young boy getting caught up in so many different things that distracts us. But I think what you have to do is recognize, that was a marker of success for me. And that's something that I placed out front that, hey, I want to do this. Let me buckle down and do this. And so it may not be the honor roll that may be for you, but say, you know what, I want to incrementally increase my my GPA from 2.5 to 2.75 or 2.75 to 3.0 or 3.0 and above? What are the things that I need to do to get it there? And so once you keep that in your mind, you'll be surprised that if you put the habits in, you communicate these things to yourself daily, and you communicate these things to those in your team who are seeking your success also, then guess what happens? You're going to exceed that marker that you had. You end up with a 3.0, even though you had your markers 2.75. But you have to look at the individual things that are going to help you be successful. Do you have to put more study time in? Of course. Do you have to now take away some of those distracting elements? Now, I didn't have the phone when I was in school, but you had distracting elements like these two gentlemen on the screen, Mario and Luigi. So we had games. So do I now have to limit the amount of time that it takes to add a little bit more for those incremental elements of success? Yes. And so I encourage each and every one of you, look at the small things, because the small measurements are going to be the indicators of success. And ultimately, it will be a successful journey.
I think we have time for one more question. And Karen Knowles asks, can you speak to setting a realistic goal and sticking to them?
So realistic goal is firstly having an appreciation and understanding of who you are. Oftentimes I love cake more than I love food. So if I'm going to set a realistic goal about losing any form of weight or losing or just cutting back on carbohydrates, I know that I have to, set one day and look forward to that one day to have cake. And then eventually the desire for it will wane away. So you have to look at how you understand yourself and what are your pitfalls that you fall into sometimes. And once you understand these things, then you can create discipline indicators. So if I don't have cake today, guess what? I was successful. I didn't fall into the trap of wanting to get cake on a Friday instead of Sunday. And so that's the reality of doing so. But realistic does have to come along with some other elements. It must be specific, must be measurable, attainable, and timely.
Thank you so much, Carl. For observing from the audience reaction, I can see that everybody really enjoyed your speech immensely today. Let's show your appreciation with those heart emojis and some loud muted claps, please. I know that from a lot of the comments that I read, it's basically food for thought. And I think Sonia wrote on the comments the same thing that I had, which was, we love the comparison that you did of exploring our own mission and path using the Marriott Brothers, something that we could really relate to. And I also love.
I just have one more slide. I want to close off with that. And I think it's important that individuals see this. Seeing this slide, and this is what I want everyone to see. Seeing this slide at the end of a stage in Super Mario meant you did it. Now, in the game, if you were able to leap to the top of the flagpole, you received maximum points. If you were unable to reach the top of the flag, you still received some points, but not as much, of course. However, the common theme was no matter the points, no matter the world or the stage of the game, the fact is you successfully traversed this world and this stage and gain admission to explore the horizon of the next stage. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, I will not tell you to not reach for the top of the flagpole, but what I will tell you, no matter how you get there, your mission was achieved, lessons were learned, and the distance to the neighboring island when we started swimming on this journey is closer than the shoreline in your rear view. And so I just wanted everyone to know that and be encouraged in exploring their new horizon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. There is an evaluation form for all attendees. Our chat monitor is going to put it in the link in the chat box. This link will be valid for 24 hours, and it's very important to our speaker and for the conference team. So please take some time to fill it out. Let's give a big round of applause and show some hearts for our production team. They did a great job, and also for our presenter. Again, thank you so much for attending the 2022 district conference. Thank you, Carl. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
The room will close in about 2 minutes, I think.
Good stuff, Carl, man. Great presentation, man. Great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
As always, Toastmaster Culmer, as always.
Really, really enjoyed it.
No, I need to play Super Mario Brothers on the weekend.
Yeah, that's Master Rodney. He can send us to play Super Mario and Luigi again.
I did not see the link in the chat. Where did you put it?
Can our chat monitor please put the link?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good
Thank you.
job, Toastmaster Carl. Always, always. Good
Thank you,
listening to you.
Toastmaster Pinder.
Yes, exceptional job, Toastmaster Culmer.
Shout out,
Always.
shout out to the Noble Prep, the students in your classroom,
Yes.
Ernesto.
Yes.
I'm so happy to know that young people are actually listening to us. That's amazing.
Yes, yes, they're the future.
And now for the students on the call, just as I'm sure he's in, Ernesto is one of the organizers behind this awesome event. So all the great things you're seeing, your teacher is working his hands off. So if he nods off in class, please forgive him. He's up late working to make sure it's a great, great session.
Just to let you know, when I clicked on the link, it says the link is no longer accepting responses.
I actually added it again. Try it.
It is not. I just did it. I believe it is the wrong link. I believe it's a link to a different presentation.
Oh. How do we fix that?
Try this last link.
Posted the link.
Sandra.
I just posted.
The last
go.
link is
That
working.
works. That works.
I just posted the link.
Yeah, that's working
Thank
now.
you.
Well, thank you, everyone. I think we're going to be